All right, folks. I want to welcome you to this public workshop for SLO Clean Energy. My name is Eric Wiem. I'm a member of the leadership team for SLO Clean Energy. I want to start by thanking you all for being here on this Thursday evening. I know in your lives there are many competing interests, and I want to recognize what it took for you to be here with us tonight. Your presence here and your participation now and going forward is what will make the difference. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest and commitment to clean energy. So SLO Clean Energy, we are an organization of citizen volunteers that are engaged and committed to transforming energy and by creating a clean energy economy here in San Luis Obispo County. We're made up of a leadership team of 4 highly committed individuals. We meet weekly. We have an awesome group of ambassadors, a lot of these folks in these cool SLO Clean Energy shirts. And we have an advisory group and a growing army of committed individuals who see possibility in community choice and creating a clean energy economy here. So Cordel will speak more to this, but in a nutshell, what community choice is, very simply, is a way for us to take local control of our energy future, to choose where our energy is coming from and how we as a community choose to see our energy develop and evolve going forward. It is enabled through state law, and it allows us to aggregate the purchasing power of each of our homes, businesses, local governments, and then leveraging that financial buying power to choose what kind of energy we want based off of our local values and where that energy comes from. What we're looking at here is a map of California. In the dark green, we have Marin County and Sonoma County and Richmond, California. Sonoma and Marin are the first community, well, Marin was the first, Sonoma is the second community choice program in the state. And right next to that, Napa County will soon be joining Marin. If you start going lower, kind of come out a little bit. Let me also include Lancaster, California, which is in the desert, a very conservative region. That's being led by a mayor who sees great economic opportunity for his community. So they're pretty much to the formation stage. They bypassed exploration and said, hey, it's working for these guys, this will work for us, and they just went for it. So in the East Bay, we have Alameda County, which is one of the most populous counties in the state. They just passed a unanimous resolution by their board to explore community choice, allocated $1 million for exploration and formation activities, like remarkable. To the south here, well, of course, San Francisco. To the south further, we have a very kind of a remarkable model. 3 counties, the Monterey Bay, Santa Cruz, Monterey County, and San Benito County. 21 jurisdictions collaboratively are working together to form the largest community choice program, but geographically, it's such a diverse region. We've got King City, very agricultural, very rural. We've got Santa Cruz, a bunch of hippies, and they're all sitting at the table because they see possibility in community choice and what it will clean energy will make possible for their communities. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Cordel Stillman. He is the Deputy Chief Engineer from the Sonoma County Water Agency. He's been the key staff person responsible for stewarding Sonoma Clean Power from the early exploration phase into formation. Sonoma Clean Power launched in May of this year, and you'll hear a lot more about this evening. My experience of Cordel is that, first of all, he's a very technical person, and he's also gregarious, really easy to talk to. He gets people, and it's a very powerful combination. And simultaneously, he's a very pragmatic person. He's an engineer. He's always telling me, don't overpromise, managing expectations. At the same time, he's a visionary. So really a powerful set of skills and leadership that has enabled Sonoma to advance into a level of leadership that is a model for us to follow. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Cordel Stillman.
Thank you. Eric's going to make me blush. So, Community Choice Aggregation. I know you folks have probably are familiar with it, but I thought I'd just go through it really quickly, what it is, how it was created, and what we can possibly take from it. And as I'm vertically challenged, so I'm going to have to do something with this. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So AB 117 in 2002, it was done in reaction to the power crisis of the early 2000s. And as Eric mentioned, it's a way of joining together other different communities and aggregating your power needs and creating an entity that buys the generation supply for your communities. Transmission and billing and anything related to power outages and so on, that remains with the local investor-owned utility. In this case, it's PG&E. Generation and supply, you determine those locally. Sonoma County, our program, we decided we didn't want to have any coal or any nuclear in our power mix, so that's what we have. We don't have those in our power mix. It's an opt-out program. Once you decide to do this, all of your constituents are enrolled automatically, and then they have the ability to opt out of that program and return to the investor-owned utility. One thing I should mention, any questions as I go through here, feel free to raise your hand and we can address them. There will also be time at the end of this presentation to answer questions. Seeing none? So this is a really basic graphic of how it works. We determine what the source is, we purchase the power, we then put it on the distribution and transmission system through PG&E's lines and then deliver it to the customer using that method. Another graphic we've used, kind of comparing it to the investor-owned utility and a public utility. Now, there's municipal utility districts out there. LA is one. Sacramento Municipal Utility District is another. The difference is that they actually own their own distribution system. And they have their own trucks, they have their own linemen, and they go out and they repair things and so on and so forth. CCAs don't do that. All of that remains with PG&E. We don't have those assets. We don't want those assets. PG&E does a great job, at least in Sonoma County, of maintaining those lines and keeping the power flowing. We don't want to do that. All we want to do is purchase the power and determine what its source is and what its content is. This has always been my favorite slide. We got this a lot when we were going out. Government can't do anything right. There's already too much bureaucracy, so on and so forth. Public power has been around for a long time. Like it says on the slide, 39 public power providers, 25% of the supply in California comes through public providers, and the average is 20% less. As an example of that, here are some local power providers. Our own city of Healdsburg in Sonoma has been a municipal utility district for 50 years now, 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Our own incumbent utility, PG&E, is at 16 cents a kilowatt hour. And these numbers admittedly are a little old, but PG&E's rates have gone up, and I don't think Healdsburg's have gone up all that much. So what are the benefits? And you'll notice that I put greenhouse gas emissions at the bottom of this list. That's one of the keys that we had to making this presentable and making this successful in Sonoma County, is that we didn't concentrate on the greenhouse gas emissions reductions. That was a part of it, but the real message was gives your citizens a choice in their power provider. Right now, they're at the mercy of a monopoly, and giving them a choice is going to instill that competition and provide a better product for the citizen. Local control of rates and programs. Right now, a lot of decisions about rates and so on are made in a conference room or a big auditorium in San Francisco. How much input do you have into that process? Absolutely none. With this community choice aggregation, it's an open public meeting. You can come and talk to your elected officials about what you want your power supply to be. Generation revenues, we are projecting about $20 million after 4 years will be our net revenues from this program. That's money that we intend to reinvest in our community. It doesn't go to San Francisco, it doesn't go to shareholders, it goes back into our community. Local jobs, that's something I'm very careful with. It really depends on the local economy, whether you have the ability to do local projects, but it can be something that is very powerful as far as getting local jobs from either rooftop solar, feed-in tariff programs, or even utility scale programs. Okay, so Marin County experience. We took a look down at what Marin had done, and we have a little rivalry with Marin. They're doctors and lawyers, and we're farmers and tradesmen. And we figured anything they can do, we should be able to do, so we took it on. And they began in 2004 and started service in 2010. They had vigorous opposition from PG&E. Misinformation campaigns, a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and but it didn't seem to matter. They've been highly successful. They're expanding into other communities. Eric mentioned Napa and Richmond, and we obviously use their program as a starting point. Why the water agency? Well, we have experience. We have solar of our own, and we have a hydroelectric plant. We're a member of a water agency, CCA. We team with 13 other irrigation districts and water agencies to purchase power and to pool our power resources. We also have an energy policy that our board approved that allows us to do projects of regional benefit. And lastly, we're running a water system over out of 3 counties, so we have a lot of multi-jurisdictional experience. And I saw a question over here.
A big enough voice, I probably, but you want me to hear recorder?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you're telling me that you're buying your energy from different providers, but you're also telling me that you're not maintaining those systems, that you don't want to get into that business, and that PG&E does that job very well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to buy energy from this young man, how do I get this nice lady to keep track of my PG&E lines and everything like that? I mean, how do they work in connection with each other if you're already getting resistance from PG&E?
Well, actually, the law requires PG&E to cooperate with us.
Oh.
And actually, and with anybody who wants to do this, by the way. And also that you will only get one bill as part of this program. Right now, your bill is broken into energy generation, energy transmission and distribution, and a number of other charges. We will be the energy generation charge. It just won't say PG&E anymore. It says Sonoma Clean Power. So that's the relationship we have with them, is we cooperate with them on the billing process. Yes, sir.
The law requires PG&E to collaborate with you, let's say, or to let you use their power lines. But what about their substations? I know that here in SLO County, the substations might be the limiting factor because the substations are somewhat at capacity here and there, or close to capacity. How do you deal with an issue like a power company that has a substation that you have the ability to put in a lot of wattage into that substation, but it doesn't have the ability to accept it?
The PG&E is in charge of the transmission and distribution. If they say that they can't take an interconnection from an intermittent source, I think that's what you're getting at here, then they control that, and they tell us that you can't do that without upgrading the system. So that's another limiting factor on where you can place renewable energy projects. But that's definitely their purview. They tell us how and where we can connect.
Are there any laws that require them to upgrade their facilities to enable?
None. None that I'm aware of. I'm going to keep going here. We got some initial time anyway. Our initial approach to this was to be neutral as myself as the water agency. Our job was to provide information, risks, benefits, what the process was, and so on, and also to answer the questions that were sure to come up from the city councils and from citizens at large. And we did this by being very thorough. We did a feasibility study that was peer-reviewed by a third party. We held focus groups and public and commercial surveys to determine what the actual feeling was from the public. You know, if you don't have the support of the public, your elected officials aren't going to come along with you. We worked on that formation of the Joint Powers Authority. We did a lot of outreach to cities, and we did a draft implementation plan, which is required by the CPUC. Why now? Well, our feasibility study showed that we could be competitive with PG&E. Natural gas prices, part of the economic, whether you like fracking or not, natural gas prices have plummeted. And that makes it very attractive right now to get into this type of a business. You need to offset some of your load with system power, and natural gas is extremely low right now. Interest rates, the same story. As the economy improves, interest rates are going to go back up, as well as natural gas prices. Our time to act was now. So it's based on a solid business model. What we're really doing is we're buying and selling a product, and buying it at wholesale and selling it at retail. We've created a business plan that is a month-by-month cost out for 4 or 5 years, and we had a bank review it, and they were so impressed by it that they offered to finance our startup costs, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And also, we plagiarized from Marin, sorry. So again, we were very pragmatic about this. We wanted to make sure that nobody could say we hadn't analyzed every possibility. So we took a look at what types of risks are out there. And supply and demand is one risk. You have to predict how much energy you're going to have in advance of when you actually need it. So there's a risk that you may not purchase enough power and have to buy it at the market rate, causing a spike, or not enough power, or too much power, and then you've bought too much and you can't get rid of it. You have to eat that power that you've purchased. There's a market risk. Prices may rise and fall. That you may have bought at a low price or at a high price, and then prices fall down like natural gas did. So those are risks. That's a risk you have to deal with. These can all be managed. This is what people do every day, day in and out, all over the country that work for power companies. And these are the exact same risks that PG&E faces. So it's nothing new. It's nothing different than is already out there. The one that's a little quirky is the regulatory risk. You never know what the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or the California Public Utilities Commission are going to do. You have to watch them very, very carefully. So our worst case scenario is that our costs get too high. We have customers opt out at a rate that we can't, to the point where we can't cover our costs from the rates that we collect. That's the absolute worst case. We don't feel we're going to get anywhere near that. Even in the worst case, there's no harm to customers. The power supply remains on. We had to put up a bond to cover the costs of returning customers to PG&E if we failed. So again, no risk to customers, no monetary risk to cities, and no service interruption risk to customers. How likely is this worst case? We don't, like I mentioned before, we don't think it's very likely to occur. Our power provider has an incentive to see that we are successful. We've had very good proposals to supply power to Sonoma Clean Power. Our business plan is based on conservative assumptions, and again, Marin's doing fine. So how does this work from a practical standpoint? Each city that chooses to participate becomes a member of a joint powers authority. This is a legal structure that insulates the city's general funds from the liabilities or the risks of forming a power company. Their general funds are not liable if things go south. That's a very important safety blanket that city council people love to hear about. It also provides a structure for decision making. Like I mentioned, we have this board the board of directors for the JPA is made up of representatives of the county and each city that's participating. We also have a business operations committee made up of folks that have some experience in power. There was an application process. They were interviewed by the board, and we formed this business operation committee. The same with the ratepayer advisory committee. Wanted to make sure that the ratepayers had a voice in how this entity was run. This was very important to the cities that the county, which I was representing, is not going to be in control. And separate legal entity designed to be free of county control, so on and so forth, and I'm sure you understand that. So this gets into a little bit of the detail of how we formed our board. Each JPA can be formed however each individual community wants to do it. This was just our take on this. Each board member gets one vote, but can call for a weighted vote based on the power purchase for that particular community. So I don't have an example off the top of my head. We haven't had a weighted vote called yet, but it's based on, again, based on the percentage of the load that each individual jurisdiction has. And I mentioned the business operations and ratepayers committees. All right, now here's where the rubber meets the road. When I talk about the financing, this is the financing for the startup of the first 6 months of operation. All of the time that we spent studying the feasibility, doing the surveys, contracting for power, that sort of thing, that was done up front of all of that. And now the water agency, my company, financed that. It was about $1.7 million over 3 years, 2.5 years. And we kept very careful track of our costs, and Sonoma Clean Power is going to pay us back for every dime that we spent over 4 or 5 years. The other financing, which is a very difficult thing to come by, I spent 1.5 years trying to find this startup financing. We managed to get a local bank to provide this financing. The startup, obviously that covers the first 6 months of time you have to start this program going. Staffing costs, conservative estimate was 2.5. We're well under that at this point. Bridge financing covers the 60 days. You have to buy the power in advance, you have to pay your contractor, and then collect from PG&E about 60 days later. So we have an available amount of $7.5 million for that. So after a long, tedious process of going to a whole bunch of gyrations with the state controller's office and the California Infrastructure Bank and so on, we finally found the financing in our own backyard, downtown Santa Rosa. The First Community Bank has been a great partner for us. Like I mentioned, they were kind enough to review our business plan, gave us the thumbs up, and you can see they developed 2 lines of credit for us, one for the startup, one for the bridge financing, both at very attractive interest rates, both with deferred interest payments and or interest-only payments. And they're a partner. They actually are going to coordinate with us on some of the advertising so that they get some credit for this. They want to be the local green bank. So here's the product that we offer. Our base product is called Clean Start. It's 33% renewable. That is based on the AB 32 RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard. This is what every investor-owned utility has to match by 2020. We're just getting there 6 years early. We intend in the near future to ramp that up to 50%. And the nice thing about this is that our rates with this more clean power are 4 to 5% below PG&E's rates. And this is available to everybody in the participating communities. We fortunately got one more community to join last night, so I welcome Cloverdale to the fold. The other product is very specific to Sonoma County. This is for the folks that want to go that extra mile, like Eric here, I'm pretty sure. And it's 100% local renewable. We guarantee that this is produced within Sonoma County. And the way we're doing that right now is with a contract with the Geyser Steam Project up there. Calpine is selling us 10 megawatts. This is about 20% above and over what Clean Start is, or about 15% above what PG&E provides. This is available to everyone. Well, we started up in phases. The first 22,000 customers in May. The remaining customers will come on board in December. But if you want to sign up for Evergreen, you can do that at any time. You don't have to wait for Clean Start. And here's our power mix. Let's see. On the right is the RPS eligible renewables. That's the local geothermal I mentioned, and also non-local wind and biomass. And 15% of that is renewable energy credits as allowed by the law. The large hydropower is coming from the northwest, and that is not RPS eligible as being large hydropower. And the remainder is basically what's called conventional power, which is natural gas. That makes up the remainder of our supply. So as I mentioned, we began service May 1st with very competitive rates. And I want to emphasize that the technical aspects of performing a CCA or putting that together, the actual database, gathering the information, that's fairly simple. It's really just a very large database with a lot of numbers in it. And you crunch those numbers and you determine what your power curve is, and then you just have your power supplier match that power curve. I didn't have to do it, so it wasn't that hard. The thing that's difficult is the people in the politics. That's what you're going to find. But education is the key, and you're starting that tonight. That's the end of the floor show. I'll be able to answer any questions at this point. Yeah.
Cordel, you mentioned that PG&E really resisted and fought the efforts of Marin County. How did they treat Sonoma County?
Well, interesting story. Because of what happened to Marin and how vicious that was, the legislature passed a law that said PG&E can't do that anymore. And so our relationship with PG&E has been very cordial. They've been trying, they still attack CCAs, for example, at AB 2145 recently. And there's been some questionable shenanigans about some of our billing that has been going out to our larger customers. But on the whole, they have not taken a public stance on this other than that they support choice. Yeah.
I was just curious as to how large one of these districts could be. I mean, it seems to be limited in size to a county. Could we conceive of all of California being a CCA district, or all of Northern California being, or would that be unwieldy?
I think it would get to be unwieldy, and then you'd become PG&E. Right. Right now, the 2145, as it's moving forward, would limit the size of them to 3 contiguous counties. And I'm a little bit of two minds about that. Some of the lower population counties still would have trouble doing this if they didn't have a lot of partners. Somebody?
And let me, as we do these questions, I think I'm going to add in and kind of add the slope perspective on. Could somebody give help with this? So, in terms of our region, what makes sense for? Actually, stand close to me so he can. So, what makes sense for our region is the possibility of connecting with Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. We've got a lot of existing relationships with those folks. Right now, we're doing an Empower program with Santa Barbara through. We're doing the Solarize program where we've gotten I think 100 and something rooftops solar systems put on. So we already have these existing successful relationships. The one kind of rub is that at the Gaviota Coast in Santa Barbara is where PG&E territory ends and Southern California Edison begins. So there may be some billing complexity around that. At the very least, if we were to look to the south of SLO, Santa Maria is a huge population base with a huge energy demand. It would make a lot of sense if we were to form a community choice program, or when we form a community choice program, that we invite Santa Maria to be part of that. In the same way that when Marin formed their program, they were quick to reach out across the bay to Richmond, which is a very diverse and different community who is loving the fact that they're part of MCE Clean Energy.
Okay, where's the mic? There's the mic back there.
When you're buying rooftop power, let's say, from private small timers, what's the smallest amount? I heard you say 10 megawatts from a geothermal or something. Mm-hmm. But what's the smallest you can buy? And is it, when you're buying from a small scale, let's say business top or something, a rooftop on a small business, what are the rates you're paying compared to the rates they'd be getting from their local utility?
Okay. The first way that we would do that was through a net energy metering program. Ours is similar to PG&E's, except we pay 1 cent more a kilowatt hour than they do. And we allow people to bank some of that. It doesn't have to be trued up every year and zeroed out every year. So those are some advantages of that. The others, like with a feed-in tariff, we have set up a feed-in tariff program where we're going to pay for local Sonoma County power. I think it's 9.5 cents a kilowatt hour, up to 12 if they use local labor. So kind of a graduated scale based on how local they make that power. And that's, we're going to try and do up to 5 megawatts this year of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and let me just add a little bit to that. So who here has solar on their roof? Okay, awesome. So right now you're under, yeah, there we go. Right now you're under, so I'll illustrate a difference here in a second between you and this guy. So right now you're under an agreement with PG&E called net metering. And what that enables is the power that you generate, you get compensated for that power. So in both Marin and Sonoma County, by having a more attractive, financially attractive net metering program that helps to incentivize the development of local rooftop renewable energy, rooftop solar, and I imagine at some point in the near future with Solar City, the work that they're doing, you know, like battery storage in residential as well, and et cetera. So by having the power to set the rates and design the programs, whether the net metering or the feed-in tariff, that's just a small sliver of the tools available to a community choice program to incentivize and promote and support the development of local renewables and rooftop solar, or in the case of a feed-in tariff, maybe solar on top of a carport or at a parking lot, or on, et cetera. So it's important to understand the distinction and the power that we have with those types of levers to promote and support the development of local renewables. Other questions?
Right here.
It seemed like I think like your very first slide, you talked about why would communities be interested in doing this, and you had local control was at the top. It seemed like you created priorities, and maybe it was just the language that you used, by saying you didn't really factor in the mix greenhouse gas reduction. That seems counterintuitive to all the other, like you said, the regulations that are requiring us to reduce. So what does that mean?
The key to that was that we didn't want that to be the first thing people heard, and that was the only reason that this was happening. We wanted to make sure that we listed out the benefits, the real tangible benefits to everyday people before we got to the climate change. Climate change, as you may be aware, turns some people off, and we wanted to make sure that we, again, laid out those benefits and tried to lay those fears to rest. And we're not just bugs and bunnies and rainbows. There's real reasons to do this.
So kind of a get her done approach? Is that what you say?
Larry the Cable Guy has never been my favorite, but I suppose that would be a good way of putting it, yeah.
But does it reduce? I mean,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, the law requires us to send out a postcard to every power user that compares Sonoma Clean Power to PG&E. And we showed the rates for both our Clean Start and our Evergreen based on PG&E's rates, and we had to work with them to make sure their rate was, we got the right rate from them. And then it also showed the greenhouse gas content of those products. PG&E was at, I think, 494 pounds per megawatt hour. We were at 250. So that was a direct comparison.
And did you say that's on the bills?
No, we're required to let customers know what it is.
Yeah, they had sent out a postcard informing folks, and he had shared earlier that when people received that, although they weren't enrolled yet because it was just part of the rules, they got 800 phone calls from people saying like, hey, how do I get on this thing? They saw whether it's and here's, I think, the point that Cordel is trying to make, whether you're being driven by the economics or you're being driven by the environmental or you're driven by both, in the case that I am, it makes sense, and it's a win-win in both columns. And that's what really makes the big difference. So if we were to go and say, this is the key environmental policy that we need to enact to fight climate change, and I think this is changing because I think that people are starting to get it but the point is that if you start on climate change, then there's a potential to alienate half of the people who have a possibility of supporting and benefiting this for reasons that align with them, like local control and like economic lower rates and local jobs, those sorts of things that provide benefit to our community without having to broach a climate change topic, and the people, and it's part of the conversation as well, and it works as demonstrated in Sonoma that you get the rate savings and you get the greenhouse gas reductions.
What percentage of those that have gone with your CCA are businesses, private rate holders, and governmental?
Okay, we rolled out to, like I mentioned, 22,000 customers. The majority of those were commercial accounts because, quite frankly, they have a higher margin than residential, and we wanted to develop a cash flow early on. We had about 6,000 residential customers as well. The opt-out rate, I'll back up and give you a little history, but Marin County's opt-out rate was about 20% when they first started up. Our opt-out rate right now is at about 9%. Does that answer your question?
And what about government?
Government is, I think, is included in that first round of 22,000.
Yeah, and what's happening next?
The next is in December. We roll out to the remaining accounts in our county, which is, I think about 180,000, 190,000 accounts.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm next. Oh.
Yeah, it's for
Hi.
the recording.
Couple of questions. One is like if by some miracle we could form CCA here tomorrow, what would be the maximum capacity for like the renewables we have available in our region? And second one is like, what is your, how do you look at nuclear power? Is that part of that mix or not? That's it.
Great, both great questions. So one of the questions I'll repeat to the folks is, if we were to start a CCA tomorrow, what kind of renewable energy resources do we have, like to what extent? And then the second question is, what about nuclear power? Does that fit somewhere in the mix? And so to answer the first question is, I was local lead on a project that studied renewable resource potential for this county. So I'd say more than anybody else in this county, I've got an understanding of what that potential is. And with, again, this is a technical potential, it wouldn't all be built, but with the rooftops and commercial and residential and on the parking lots, if that, there is sufficient resource there to meet the demands of our entire county. Again, that's a very, like, from a technical perspective. The conclusions that we had was that resources are abundant and that there are huge opportunities that are yet untapped. Whether or not that can meet our entire load, that would be something that we'd have to shoot for over time. And as technology changes and the cost continues to drop, you know, that's something that we should shoot for. It's also important to note that we have two of the world's largest solar facilities on our Carrizo Plains, which generate almost, in terms of the amount of energy we use, almost equivalent to the amount of energy we use as a county as a whole. But again, that is a state or utility-wide resource. And that's the response that I have around Diablo Canyon, is Diablo Canyon is owned by PG&E and is a resource that is sold and distributed to their customers. PG&E absolutely, like any other energy company, not the utility, but PG&E Corporation has the ability to compete with the other energy companies to say, you know what, well, we want to compete to deliver you power. How awesome would that be, you know? And so there's a potential that, and this is kind of out there, that they could have a portfolio with nuclear power. But the bottom line is that that resource isn't available to us, and PG&E hasn't expressed any interest in competing for our business.
So what is it today, though? How much we have today available to us if we were to start tomorrow?
How much?
Green energy or nuclear energy?
The green, yeah. The renewable.
Again, I would hope to have made this point. Is that we have an abundant resource. There's a lot of untapped potential. I mean, I could get more specific, but to the extent that we could potentially meet the entire needs of our county from resources that we have within the county. Does that answer your question?
I think she's asking what is the generation capacity that's already installed?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not fresh on the Thank you for translating for me, Dennis. I'm kind of an idiot. No, that's a great question. I have access to those numbers, but I don't have them on the top of my head right now. Yeah, but you'd be surprised at it is relatively little. It's in the extent of like within each community, like less than 100. In San Luis Obispo, big city, like less than 100 solar projects or something like that. So.
Just as an example, in Sonoma County, our load is about 350 megawatts, and we, as one of the larger, one of the better counties, I don't know about SLO, but better counties as far as per capita solar installation, and we're at about 25 megawatts. So just a very small portion of the load.
I have two questions. The first is there are many vested interests who benefit from the tax base of PG&E. I saw a bullet point up there that you didn't explain that said there was no risk to the tax base. So could you explain that? And also, what kind of disinformation might we expect?
They're still going to have all of their facilities. The facilities don't go away that they pay property taxes on. That revenue is still going to be there. We don't expect in Sonoma County that we're going to see much, if any, impact from switching over from PG&E. As far as what you can expect more of the type of thing from 2145 at the state level. You will see them use their union. IBEW has been very, very active. They sponsored 2145. They've been very active in San Francisco. They were very active in Marin, but they left us alone. I'm not sure why. We got a few forceful letters, and stumbled there a little bit, and but no real active opposition.
Are we passing the?
I've got it here.
Oh.
Okay, so if all the counties in California created CCAs, or say, I don't know, a lot, and all of them said we don't want nuclear as part of our mix, could that in itself shut down Diablo Canyon?
I don't have the ability to answer that question, really. All I know is that what I can say is that the grids are connected all over the western United States. The only thing that would do is make that power more expensive because it would have to be transported, distributed further.
So they'd sell it out of state if that was potentially, yeah.
What's been the interest so far in the Evergreen program? And as everyone else gets closer to RPS, do you think you'll roll out a wider range of options for your consumers?
The Evergreen has been, I don't have the numbers, again, right off the top of my head, the latest numbers. It's been a continuous process of as people find out about it. We have not been advertising it. It's just up on our website, and we want to make sure that we concentrate on getting the basic service out before we start advertising that. I signed up for it, and actually my agency signed up for it as well, all of the remaining PG&E accounts. So I think there was 300 or 400 had signed up so far.
The experience that I've had with programs of this sort where you would opt up is that there's normally like about 3% participation rate, and that's really why it's critical that the investment happen on just the standard package. That if people are getting rate reductions or competitively priced power, then you just keep on pushing up that lower level. The challenge around community choice, and this is why it's important to connect with the higher possibilities here, is this is kind of a complex thing. Electricity is weird and kind of unable to touch, right? So what's important is that a lot of people aren't engaged in energy decisions, and so the opportunity with community choice is to leverage the buying power to help reach the goals of the community with the support of folks that are engaged or not engaged. So we need to keep that in mind.
And I didn't answer your second question, which is, could we do some other type of rate structure? And the answer is yes. We have the ability to determine how we want to sell that power. But you do have to have that base that everybody is offered initially.
So I'm hearing that there are 200,000 customers in Sonoma. You're 22,000 plus your 180,000. And you're able to provide them with 33% renewable energy in your base offering. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
And so we could expect here in San Luis, if we set up, how many customers are there in San Luis County or whatever? Do you know?
Interestingly, we're a very similar county, populations comparable. We have 250,000 people. Is
about 300.
300,000. When I did the renewable energy study, 350 megawatts was about the peak load. So we have very comparable.
So we have comparable things. So out of the blocks, we could expect something like 33% renewable energy as the base program or whatever once we would get started here.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assumption?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Even in the base product, you've negated coal generation?
Yes, in the base product. Yes.
My question is, to go back to the early days when you were just trying to get this rolling, and what do we as citizens do, particularly those of us who don't have a city council to go to and live in the unincorporated parts of the county?
You go and talk to your county supervisor, whoever is going to be making the decision. The driving force back in Sonoma County was an organization called Climate Protection Campaign. And they did a lot of organizing both at the grassroots level and at the business level. And you've got a similar program getting started right here with SLO Clean Energy. So that's how we got started, and that was a continual support to this entire process. They got people out to the city council meetings when I was there. During public comment, they would talk about how much they wanted this, and that was a real key, was having the public support so that the public officials could vote and be confident that they were representing their people.
To speak to SLO Clean Energy for a moment, and then Dennis, I'm looking forward to your question. Of course, yeah, what we're doing is educating folks, getting people together, building a base of support that's visible to the elected officials, and then simultaneously, we're active in meeting with electeds, meeting with business leaders individually, and connecting all of the dots, having the conversation, helping people understand what's really possible through this. And what's happening out of that is it's starting to build momentum. And through that momentum is how, and the visibility of the support of all you folks, and through that is how we affect change in bringing community choice to San Luis Obispo County. And I'll be talking more about that in the ways that you as individuals can be of support in making this happen in just a few minutes.
Hi, so I'm here from Cal Poly. I work in facilities and I help manage our energy programs for the university. To assess the opportunity for Cal Poly to implement something like this, I'm curious to know, since Cal Poly is a state agency, we are neither part of the city nor the county. We're on state land. We're governed by the Board of Trustees of the CSU under the legislature for the state of California. One question is, in all the areas that's been implemented in California, has that included a university campus either of the CSU or the UC? And did that work for them? I'm curious. And two, as a large entity, we purchase power pretty cheaply already because we own our own substation. We are what is considered a transmission level customer, as opposed to being a residential customer, a commercial customer, or an ag customer on what would be paying higher rates of power on the tariff schedule. Mm-hmm. Has this been economically viable for a transmission level customer to participate in? And do you address that by having a tiered rate structure, or does everybody pay the same rate structure?
I love these two-part questions. We do have Sonoma State University is within Cotati, and actually I can't remember if it's in Rohnert Park or Cotati. Rohnert Park. And Rohnert Park did not choose to participate at this time. So I don't have a good answer for you because we haven't crossed that threshold yet. But as a direct access customer, it's going to be hard for us to beat your rate. And
we're actually a bundled service customer.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's going to depend on what type of product they put together and at what price.
Yeah. What's really cool about community choice programs and the rate setting power is that we can create customized rates to support the type of businesses. Like if we want a big customer like Cal Poly involved, we can create a custom rate specifically to support that. If there's a sector of business like specialized manufacturing or technology, a certain type of commercial customer, you can work together to create strategic rates in support of those types of businesses.
Thanks for coming to San Luis. I'm thinking we had a great opportunity here. We got a water engineer who could speak to what this would do to water rates. Obviously, you said you transferred your billing to the CCA. What's your view of what this means to water conveyance, which is a real power-intensive thing and affects our economy?
Yes, that's absolutely true. Well, as I mentioned, we belong to a CCA of water companies, so our rates are already about 2/3 to 1/2 of what PG&E's rates would be to us, even on the transmission side, because we own our own substations as well. By adding those last 3% of our power supply and doing the Evergreen product, we figure we raised our power costs by 1%. So we were already cheaper than PG&E. We figured 1% was worth reaching our goal. We had a goal of being carbon-free by 2015, and we're on our way to meeting that goal.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to what she asked earlier. You said we could talk to our city council members or county supervisors, but what are the other steps to getting a CCA here in San Luis Obispo, and what can we as community organizers do to accelerate that?
Sure. Well, absolutely, there's working with us. I mean, we're an organization that has a very directed goal to bring this conversation and the exploration of community choice to bear. So the first thing you should do is connect with us, right? So this is a great segue into the closing portion of our program this evening. And so let me just talk to you about what you can do as individuals to support this effort. Again, let me step back and say that SLO Clean Energy is active in building relationships with strategic elected officials, with business leaders, etc. And what is important on the grassroots side in terms of driving leadership from the bottom up is to be visible and to be seen. And so that's one of the things that we want to do this evening. So I have 3 requests for you this evening and 3 opportunities. The first thing that you can do to take action on this is to keep in touch with us. So if you are not on a list with your name, your email, and your zip code, make sure before you walk out the door tonight that that's done. June in the back has a list there. What that enables us to do is to stay in touch and to let you know when there's opportunities. Let me give you a perfect example. We've gotten a clear message from the city of San Luis Obispo that in order for this to go, we need to make this a major city goal during the next goal setting process, which is coming up in December. And how do we do that? It's actually really easy, and the Bike Coalition is phenomenal at this. They just bring out the people who care about it, and it doesn't take a ridiculous amount of people to flip that scale. So what are we going to do? We're going to rally a ton of folks to come out during that goal setting process and to raise their hands, wear the shirts, and put the dots where it matters. And from there, we'll get the city moving on this. And we've done it before with the SLO City Farm, and we're going to do it with SLO Clean Energy. So keep in touch. Second is support SLO Clean Energy and look good while doing it, right? So what this means is that we have a campaign where we are raising $50 from 1,000 people. That effort, that base will demonstrate to the decision makers that there is a core group of people that are committed to seeing this happening for a reasonable contribution. What comes with that contribution is a really kick-ass shirt. And so what that does, yeah, just like awesome shirts that you guys can wear around town and start to build the cool brand that is SLO Clean Energy and the cool opportunity for the community that's SLO Clean Energy. So not only are you providing a contribution where we can bring your commitment and the financial resources to bear to say, like, hey, the community's stepping forward and stepping up, and you can work with us to build a brand that people recognize and that resonates, and that is the thing that people are like, whatever that is, I want some of it, or I want to get that shirt, what does it take to make that happen? It'd be cool to just see these things, you know, just plastered all over town. We've got awesome stickers, you know, put them on your bicycle helmets, give them to your kids to put on their helmets, put it on your office windows. We just need to build like a recognition of cool around SLO Clean Energy, because that's exactly what it is. Like, there's just such a positive opportunity here. On the other side, again, we're reaching out strategically to business leaders, electeds, communities. So we have another campaign where we're raising $1,000 from 50 individuals, which creates, you know, engagement from those that can afford it, you know, and it brings them to the table in a way that is of substance. And then finally, make your support visible. And so before anybody walks out that door, I have two requests. One is that we take a group photo together holding that sign so that we can post it up on Facebook. The second piece of that, and we've already gotten started with this a little bit with Scott, is that we've got kind of a pseudo photo booth going where you can just select the reason that SLO Clean Energy is a possibility for you, whether that's local control and accountability, or clean energy and resiliency, competition and choice, or you can write your own. And let's take those pictures and let's get them up on Facebook. And I request that you go both on the group photo and on your individual photos and tag it and share it with your friends. And let's use that to just start building visibility and passion and momentum and movement for SLO Clean Energy. We're going to do the work with your support to put all the right pieces in place with the elected officials and business leaders. We need you to be visible and active and committed as a community and show up to those, you know, come spend a night with us at SLO City, and let's make this a major city goal. That's such a tangible outcome that we can make happen, like no problem.
I have... Just for the sake of time.
Yes.
I would like to do one more thing. I know you have questions, and this is what I'd like to bring up. My name is Mladen, and also on the leadership team. I'd like the ambassadors to come up because they're all kick-ass shirts.
Thank you, Mladen.
And if you have more questions, and you will, you're welcome to stay here and talk to them because they will answer your questions.
Yeah.
And we'd like to keep the conversation going.
Yes.
And then take the photo.
Yeah. And let me say the final thing. So, what's your name behind Evie? What's your name? Jesse. So you want to get involved? You have the possibility to become an ambassador and start to build that network of these awesome, dedicated people. You can be part of that, and so we can just organically grow it into something that finally, you know, the 100th monkey until it finally tips. Okay, so out of respect for everyone and your commitment to be here until 8 o'clock, I'd like to kind of close questions for now. Get together and take a group picture for those that are interested. You know, you have a choice, and that's what this is about. And so let's have that picture taken, and then let's do it here. Let's do it here, and let's take that down and kind of line up and see if we can bring this up and step people on it.
Yeah. Come on, and I just want to, before everyone takes off, Cordel Stillman for being our...
Yeah. Yeah, come on up there.
Oh, you have just been totally...
You're going to have to get down, buddy. You're going to have to get down.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a couple more. More. 8, 9. I'm going to turn the flash just in case. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's see what we're going to say.
Come on, Scott.
Can everyone say clean energy? 1.
All right.
Thank you.
Which, by the way, speaking of water.